Hello everyone, my name is Daniel. As I mentioned in the previous video, um, I just made my YouTube channel recently, and I'm doing videos on book reviews, biohacks, and other very useful information. So if you guys are interested, please subscribe to my channel, give me a like, and that would be great. So today I'm actually doing a review on this book right here, which is highly recommended. It's called Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. And this is a very, very nice book. Um, so it talks about how um, he was in a concentration camp, right, between 1942 and 1945. So for for around for like 4 years he was in four different camps, and so of course faced very harsh conditions where his parents, his brother, and his wife all have died. So and yet he was still able to find meaning through all of through all of through all of that. um, and That's kind of what I wanted to talk about today about his book. This book is actually broken down into two parts. Part one, it talks about the psychological progression of the inmates, and part two talks about his technique called logotherapy, which is um, helping people find meaning in their life. So I will just briefly I will start talking about the part one of the book, and then I'll go to part two. So in part one, um, Frankl talks about being able to choose one's attitude, or we have the freedom to choose. Right? This is similar to Stephen Covey's book, where his first habit is being proactive. So essentially, you are responsible for your own life. Similarly, here, you can choose your own attitude and your own way. Okay, so it's not the environment or the biology or the psychology or like the external factors that govern your choice, or it's not merely those, but it's also your freedom of choice that governs what you're going to do, your decision, right? And I believe Tony Robbins also discusses it very frequently. It's the decision that you make, which is going to ultimately determine the actions that you take and the results that you gain, and whether or not you're able to fulfill your dreams, for example. So it all comes of the choice, right? Your freedom to choose um, how to behave or how to act, right? What your attitude, what will your attitudes be in that given moment? Okay. So again, um, it all depends on the person, as he mentions. Some are saints, but others become even worse than guards in how they treat their fellow inmates. So every person is unique, and it's how you react. It's the reaction to that event, that situation. Um, that's I believe that's really really important. And the second big kind of theme of part one of the book is he who has a why can bear almost anyhow. And I believe Friedrich Nietzsche is the guy who came up with this one. It was in the book as well, and it it kind of states that you have to have a reason to live, um, and if you don't, that's going to cause you to have disease and illnesses in life, and the eventual perish of the individual. In the camps, for example, right, the prisoners were literally expected to die in 48 hours. Those that have no meaning, those that decided to smoke a cigarette and fulfill their immediate pleasure, versus really having a meaning in life, a reason for why. And I can relate, right? Before taking any course, right? Ask yourself, why are you doing it? Why is what gives you the motivation or the drive to do anything that you'd like to do. Okay, so having a why is very important. That allows you to bear the how. So if you have a why, you'll be able to figure out how to do it. The questions will sort of be answered for you. Okay, and I think that Tony Robbins actually describes that too, right? It's you being able to you'll be able to answer the questions if you have a reason for why you want to do it. And then the last thing is we should not ask um, what is the meaning of life. But what we should do is we should take responsibility to find out the answer to each problem that we face in life. So life will keep on challenging us with for us to determine our meaning in life. We don't need to ask it. We just have to kind of find opportunities in all of the challenges that we have. Okay, so I found that to be really, really interesting. Let's briefly talk about part two. So part two is logotherapy, and I don't want to go over 15 minutes, so I'll try to do it briefly. So it's meaning based, and it focuses more on the future, right? So really having that why again, why you want to live, that meaning or that purpose in life. Okay, so and it varies a lot. So depending on where you are in your life, whether you are in your 20s like myself, or in your 30s, or in your 40s, or in your 50s, etc., that can change, right? So that's one example, age, but also any depending on the moment you're in, that can differ. Okay, so and so the question is, how do you find your purpose? And that's what part two is about. And there's three ways. One is by creating a creative work or a deed, right? So doing something like a task that is fulfilling, or like your mission in life, right? So essentially that involves pursuing a life task. The second one involves experiencing something or someone, or through encounters. So this involves love, right? So this actually involves love, because loving is the only way to truly see the other person's core or personality. So that allows you really to see the other person's potential, and that allows you then to help them achieve it, or to actualize his potential. That's actually really, really important. And so through love, you're able to help that person actualize or realize his dreams. Okay. So it's only through love that we're able to see clearly or fully the other person. And then the last one is the attitude of unavoidable suffering. So all of us will be in some state, right, of suffering, but it's how can we find meaning in that? And so he gave an example of an elderly patient of depression who lost his wife, and the doctor asked him two questions. What would happen, okay, as I'm reading here my notes, if you died first and your wife survived you? And it says I would have suffered, she would have suffered a lot. And so he says, okay, well, that he saved his wife's suffering by his suffering. So the man then thanked Viktor Frankl because he allowed him to find meaning in his suffering, to changing his perspective. So even though it's very difficult sometimes, this is what really brings meaning and value to one's life, to find meaning in the most difficult and harsh situations, like the Auschwitz camp, for example, right? Very difficult situations, and yet you can still find meaning even in those kind of situations. So it's the perspective on suffering that is key. Okay, so essentially, it's giving meaning to suffering, regardless of the 3 years that he suffered through 4 concentration camps and all he went through, he still found meaning in that. So essentially, just to summarize, 3 ways to find purpose. The first one is by pursuing a life task. The second one is by loving selflessly, so it's called, or unconditional love to other person, through which you can really have a good vision or see the other person's potential and help him reach his potential and self-actualize and realize his dreams. And then the last one is called suffering bravingly. So being brave, right? Probably said that wrong. Sorry, suffering bravely. There we go. So right, so even in the worst circumstances, when you're being tortured in a camp, still finding meaning through that, and that's what really allows you to find the purpose in life. By the way, he also had a term called existential vacuum. Well, that's the opposite. That's when you don't have any meaning in life, and that's what can lead to things like despair, addiction, anxiety, depression, and like mental turmoil. So that's why it's good to have a purpose in life. And these are the 3 steps that I outlined to prevent that existential vacuum from taking place. Okay, and so that's important. So for example, for love, why is that important? Because the more one forgets himself by giving himself to another person through love, um, the more he can actually help the other person, but also self-actualize himself. So bullet two of those three steps for love, when you do that, you help the other person self-actualize, and you also have to act, and you also help self-actualize yourself to realize your meaning, because the ultimate um, meaning, ultimate purpose of anybody should be to find a cause greater than oneself and to help others in any way, right? For example, you can call loved ones, you can mentor someone, you can help someone um, make his own decisions, maybe more ones that are more empowering to help him develop and grow, right? So there's many ways that you can do that, but it means serving something bigger than yourself through love, because love allows you to see that person's potential and then help him elevate that. And then for the third bullet point, I wanted to say the way that Frankel was able to see meaning in suffering is that he imagined himself giving a lecture of psychology in a concentration camp. So he was very objective when he did that. He looked at it from a scientific kind of remotely from a science background, so very objectively, as science we all know is. And so he was able to rise above the suffering of the moment and observe it as if it was something in the past and he already conquered it, giving his psychology like presentation to his students, for example, right, on the science of psychology of the concentration camp, right, that he already experienced. So that's that. Now I would like to talk to you about some of the things about um, logotherapy, which is the meaning. He did say that there has to be some dynamic tension involved. So essentially, it's knowing what we want to achieve in life and where we are right now, and that kind of like that gap is what allows us to have that small tension. So we don't want to have tensionless completely. We want to have a bit of tension to help us get to that state. So it's like we need a little bit of that, right? It's between what one achieved and what one is hard to achieve in the future, what one is looking forward to achieving. So we can essentially challenge our uh, selves on the life's meaning to achieve more what you want to achieve, right? So that's key. So this tension allows us to challenge ourselves and helps us overcome the obstacles that we may face to help us eventually get to that level that we want to help us achieve our dreams. The next thing is not all neurosis is pathological. So we need to ask if neurosis is due to um, our path deviations from our true purpose. So um, um, the neurosis state that we're in may actually not be um, may actually not be because of any disease or any pathology, but just because we don't have a meaning in life, so that existential crisis or the existential vacuum. And then the last one, which differs a bit from mindfulness, which tells us to look at the present, although he probably believed that too, but he talked about we also have to consider the past and the future, because those conditions in the camp, for example, there's so much suffering, you can't focus on the present. You need to focus on the past and in the future. The future is where our life purpose is, so that makes sense. And the past is everything that we already accomplished in our life and the choices that we made. The past is very effective for people who are a bit um, 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 older, because what happens is, well, they can actually reflect back on something, right? Rather than just um, um, well, they already like lived so much in their life and have no purpose. For people that are younger, it's good to have look at the future to have a life purpose. So again, depending on where you are in that stage, but regardless, it doesn't mean that the people who are a bit older or younger can be in different stages, but for the most part, um, okay. And essentially, I will leave you with one quote. What gives um, life meaning must endure the burning. So essentially, there'll be challenged, in, for example, attention to reach what you want. There may be challenges along the way, but it's also find meaning and opportunities in the challenges who will eventually able to endure these challenges to reach their dreams. So that's it. So that's what I wanted to talk about. So again, the key takeaway is having a meaning. The why will help you reach the how. Right? Is really really important. And life will keep on challenging you with different things, but finding meaning even in the challenging situations will 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 um, will allow you to reach your goals, right? And essentially, every experiences that we face in life are opportunities, and we have to see them as such because they will help us see who we really are, right? Because if you experience suffering, if you can find a meaning, right, for the future to see why it takes place and looking at it as some opportunity to eventually self-actualize yourself in the long term rather than seeking the immediate gratifications in the short term. Hopefully that makes sense. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you like it, please do subscribe, okay? Please do subscribe to my channel, and I wish you all the best. Peace.